3 years ago, I saved a major client from bankruptcy. Yesterday, the CEO's son fired me from the office I built, without so much as a thank you. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is best served legally, methodically, and with every single enterprise account walking out the door with you. This is how I took back what was mine, all 14 contracts, one handshake at a time. My name is Marissa Kane, and until 48 hours ago, I was the Vice President of Enterprise Sales at Delta Core Solutions in Ashford, Colorado. I'd spent the last 6 years of my life building something from nothing, transforming a software company's pipe dream of landing corporate clients into a revenue stream worth $32 million annually. 14 enterprise accounts, each one cultivated through countless red-eye flights, weekend calls, and the kind of relationship building they don't teach in business school. The morning I was fired started like any other. Coffee at 5:30 a.m., emails by 6, and in the office by 7 Maurice's Cedar Sharp. I was reviewing the quarterly projections when Linda from HR knocked on my door. She had that look, the one that says someone upstairs made a decision that's about to ruin your day. Marissa, could you join us in conference room B? There, sitting at the head of the table like he'd earned it, was Tanner Gray, 27 years old, fresh MBA from a program his father probably donated a building to, and wearing a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He'd been haunting our offices for the past 3 months, officially as a consultant, but everyone knew the truth. When your last name matches the CEO's, consulting is just a waiting room for whatever C-suite position Daddy decides to create. Marissa, he began, not even attempting eye contact. We're restructuring the enterprise sales division. Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately. I'd like to say I saw it coming. That's what you're supposed to say in these situations, right? That you had a feeling, that the writing was on the wall. But the truth is, I was blindsided. Just last week, I'd closed a 2-year renewal with Morrison Industries. The week before that, I'd flown to Detroit to personally handle a crisis with our third largest account. I wasn't just good at my job. I was the job. I'm sorry, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. But who's going to manage the enterprise accounts? We have 4 renewals coming up this quarter alone. Tanner finally looked at me, and there it was. That particular brand of smugness that only comes from unearned confidence. I'll be taking over as Vice President of Enterprise Sales. Don't worry, I've been studying your files. My files, as if 6 years of relationship capital could be downloaded from a shared drive. The rest was a blur of humiliation dressed up as protocol. Security escort to my office, where I'd hung my diplomas, where I'd taken calls at midnight from Tokyo, where I'd literally slept on the couch during product launches. 20 minutes to pack 6 years into a cardboard box. No goodbye email allowed, no transition meetings. No explanations to the team I'd hired and trained. Linda from HR handed me a folder. Your severance package, she said, avoiding my eyes. 2 weeks' pay and continuation of health benefits through the end of the month. 2 weeks for the woman who'd built their entire enterprise division from scratch. As security walked me through the lobby, past the wall of awards I'd won for the company, past the reception desk where Maria always saved me the good coffee, I heard Tanner's voice echoing from the conference room. He was already on a call with Morrison Industries, butchering their CEO's name and pitching some half-baked AI integration that anyone who'd actually listened to their needs would know they'd never want. The automatic doors closed behind me, and there I stood in the parking lot, holding a box of personal items like a cliché from a movie I never wanted to star in. But as I loaded that box into my car, something shifted. This wasn't an ending. Tanner Gray had made a critical error, one that only someone who'd never actually built anything would make. He thought the value was in the title, the office, the company email address. He didn't understand that in enterprise sales, the product isn't software, it's trust. And trust doesn't transfer with a job title. I sat in my car for a moment, watching the building where I'd given so much of myself. Then I pulled out my personal phone, the one with all my real contacts, The ones who texted me happy birthday and sent pictures of their kids, and scrolled through 14 names, 14 enterprise accounts, 14 relationships I'd built from nothing, 14 opportunities to show Delta Core Solutions exactly what they'd just thrown away. The first night was the worst. I sat in my downtown Ashford apartment, the one I'd barely seen during quarterly close periods, and felt the weight of sudden stillness. No emails pinging, no calendar alerts, no early morning flights to book. Just me, a bottle of wine I couldn't bring myself to open, and the ghost of who I'd been 12 hours ago. I'd always prided myself on being rational, logical, above the petty emotions that derailed careers. But that night, every doubt I'd ever buried came crawling out. Maybe I had pushed too hard in meetings. Maybe I should have been more diplomatic when Tanner presented his ridiculous AI-first revolution strategy last month. Maybe if I'd just smiled and nodded instead of pointing out that our enterprise clients needed stability. Not buzzword bingo. I'd still have my key card. My phone buzzed. Sarah Chen from my team, former team, texting from her personal number. This is insane. We're all in shock. Tanner just asked if Morrison Industries does computers. I can't. I almost laughed. Then came more texts. David, my lead account manager. He wants us to cold call Fortune 500 CEOs, says relationships are overrated. By midnight, I had 17 messages from colleagues, not one from leadership. 6 years of 70-hour weeks, and I'd been erased like a typo. I spent the next day in a haze. Updating LinkedIn felt like admitting defeat. Calling recruiters felt like betrayal, not to Delta Core, but to everything I'd built. Those weren't just accounts in a CRM system. They were 3-hour dinners with CTOs who trusted me with their digital transformation fears. They were CEOs who called me directly when board members questioned their software spend. They were relationships forged in crisis and strengthened by success. On day 3, I finally opened my laptop and did what I should have done years ago. I made a list of every enterprise account, not by revenue or contract size, but by relationship depth. Morrison Industries. Jake Morrison had invited me to his daughter's college graduation. I'd helped them navigate a breach that could have destroyed their reputation. Eastwell Logistics, their CFO, Patricia Eastwell, and I had worked through their digital transformation together, including the weekend her father, the founder, had a heart attack, and she needed someone to present to the board. Pinnacle Manufacturing. I'd literally learned Mandarin basics to better communicate with their Shanghai team. Each name was a story. Each contract was trust monetized. And now Tanner Gray was about to learn the difference between inheriting a position and earning one. On day 4, the calls started coming in, not from Delta Core, but from my clients. Jake Morrison first. Marissa, what the hell happened? Some kid just pitched me on replacing our entire infrastructure with AI chatbots. Is this a joke? Patricia Eastwell. Please tell me you're starting your own firm. That boy asked if we still use trucks for logistics. By the end of the week, I had a clear picture. Tanner wasn't just bad at the job. He was actively destroying relationships it had taken years to build. He'd canceled the quarterly business reviews to replace them with innovation sessions. He'd told Pinnacle Manufacturing that their concerns about system stability were 20th century thinking. He'd actually suggested Morrison Industries fire half their IT staff and replace them with automation. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by 6 years of handwritten thank you notes from clients, photos from company celebrations I'd helped them achieve, and the awards they'd insisted on sharing with me. The anger was still there, but it had crystallized into something more useful. They'd taken my title, my office, my company email, but they couldn't take the thing that actually mattered, the trust I'd earned, one conversation at a time. That night, I pulled up the Delta Core contracts I'd negotiated. I'd always been thorough, maybe too thorough, in protecting the company's interests. But in my focus on serving Delta Core, I'd noticed something interesting. 11 of the 14 contracts were month to month after their initial terms. I'd recommended longer commitments repeatedly, but the CFO always pushed back, wanting flexibility. flexibility. It's funny how corporate buzzwords can cut both ways. I closed my laptop and made a decision. I wouldn't be vindictive. I wouldn't be petty. I would simply give my clients what they'd always received from me: the truth, excellent service, and someone who actually understood their business. If that happened to align with starting my own consulting firm, well, that was just the free market at work. The wine I'd left unopened that first night? I poured it down the sink. I had work to do, and I'd need to be sharp. Tanner Gray thought he'd won by taking my position. He was about to learn that in enterprise sales, the position was never the prize. The relationships were, and those were still mine. The plan started with a simple Google search: how to register an LLC in Colorado. 48 hours and $50 later. Kane & Co. Consulting existed. No fancy logo, no website, just a legal entity and a business bank account. I wasn't trying to build an empire. I just needed a professional way to offer my services when the time came. The time came sooner than expected. My phone rang at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Jake Morrison didn't bother with pleasantries. "Marissa, I need you to level with me. Can Delta Core deliver our Q4 infrastructure upgrade without you?" I chose my words carefully. "Jake, I'm no longer with Delta Core. I can't speak to their current capabilities." "Cut the corporate speak. You know that's not what I'm asking." I took a breath. "What specific concerns do you have?" "Tanner Gray just sent me a proposal to replace our entire customer service system with chatbots. We're a family business, Marissa. My customers call us because they want to talk to humans who know their names. This kid is trying to turn us into everything we fought against for 40 years. I didn't trash Tanner. I didn't need to. "What does your team think about the proposal?" "They think I should call you." That afternoon, I met Jake for coffee. Not as a Delta Core representative, but as Marissa Kane, independent consultant. We didn't discuss poaching or contracts. We talked about his business, his father who'd started it, his daughter who was learning the ropes. When he asked if I could help them evaluate their technology strategy independently, I said yes. Word travels fast in enterprise circles. By the end of the week, I'd received similar calls from 6 other clients. Each conversation followed the same pattern: confusion about Delta Core's new direction, concern about their existing implementations, and a careful question about my availability for a strategic consultation. I established 3 rules for myself. Never initiate contact about leaving Delta Core. Never badmouth Tanner or the company. Always be transparent about my new status. The beauty was, I didn't need to break any of these rules. Tanner was doing the work for me. Sarah, still on the inside, kept me informed through carefully worded personal texts. Tanner had implemented a new efficiency protocol. No more on-site visits, all meetings virtual, and a push to automate every possible touchpoint. He'd actually told Patricia Eastwell that her concerns about maintaining personal relationships were outdated thinking for a digital age. Patricia Eastwell, the woman who'd built a logistics empire on handshake deals and knowing every driver's name. When Patricia called me, she was laughing, actually laughing. "Marissa, honey, that boy just asked if we'd considered replacing our drivers with drones. All of them. Does he think we're Amazon?" "What did you tell him?" "I told him we'd consider it when drones could help unload a worried customer's emergency shipment at 2 a.m. in a snowstorm. You know, like Tommy Rodriguez did last Christmas Eve." I knew Tommy. I'd sent him a bonus gift card after that delivery. These weren't just business stories, they were human stories. And Tanner, with his MBA theories and Silicon Valley podcasts, had no idea he was erasing them. By week 3, I had a decision to make. 8 clients had reached out for informal consultation. I could keep playing it safe, offering advice over coffee, or I could make it official. I chose official. Kane & Co. Consulting got its first real asset: a simple website with 1 page, no flashy graphics, no stock photos of people pointing at computers. Just a single line. Enterprise technology consulting built on relationships, not algorithms. My phone rang within an hour of the site going live. David, my former lead account manager, calling from his personal cell. Marissa, Tanner just announced he's firing the entire account management team. Says the AI can handle relationship building. I've got 6 people here who've been with these clients for years. We're all getting 2 weeks' notice. I thought about those 6 people. Good people who understood that behind every contract was a human being trying to solve a problem. People who knew that sometimes the best technology solution was admitting technology wasn't the solution. David, do you have your client contacts backed up? Personal phone, just like you taught us. Good, tell the others to do the same. And David, keep your LinkedIn updated. You never know who might be hiring soon. I hung up and looked at my empty home office. In 3 weeks, I'd gone from corner office to kitchen table, but I had something Tanner would never understand, something you couldn't inherit or buy or automate. I had the trust of people who mattered. And in enterprise sales, trust is the only currency that actually spends. Tanner thought he was consolidating power by cutting the human element. He was actually writing my business plan for me. Every relationship he dismissed, every personal touch he automated, every client concern he minimized, he was building my pipeline. I opened my laptop and started drafting service proposals. Not aggressive poaching attempts, just simple offerings to help companies navigate their technology needs with someone who understood their history. Someone who knew their names. Someone they trusted. The revenge wasn't in the planning, it was in the patience. Tanner would hang himself with his own efficiency rope. I just had to be ready to catch the clients when they fell. The first domino fell on a Wednesday. Jake Morrison called at 6 a.m., skipping even the pretense of small talk. We're done with Delta Core. Can you handle our infrastructure upgrade? Jake, that's a significant decision. Have you? Tanner sent an AI to our quarterly review. An actual AI avatar. Said it was more efficient than flying out. My father built this company on handshakes. Marissa, I'm not discussing our technology future with a cartoon. By noon, I had Morrison Industries' signature on a consulting agreement. No poaching, no solicitation, just a client exercising their month-to-month termination clause and choosing to work with someone they trusted. The second domino came faster. Patricia Eastwell didn't even call first. She showed up at the coffee shop where I'd been taking meetings, contract in hand. That boy told me personal relationships were a legacy inefficiency. You know what's inefficient? Training a new consultant every time some MBA decides to revolutionize an industry they don't understand. 2 down, 12 to go. What happened next was almost surgical in its precision. David and 3 other former account managers from Delta Core reached out. Tanner had followed through on his threat, giving them 2 weeks' notice. I brought them on as independent contractors with Kane & Co. Not employees, not yet, but aligned partners who knew every client's birthday, every system quirk, every late-night crisis we'd solved together. Keep it clean, I told them in our first meeting. We don't badmouth Delta Core. We don't share proprietary information. We just offer better service. The clients will make their own choices. And they did. Pinnacle Manufacturing was next. Their Shanghai team had been trying to explain a supply chain integration issue to Tanner for 3 weeks. He kept responding with links to YouTube videos about digital transformation. When they called me, I listened for 2 hours, asked 3 questions, and identified the root cause, a simple time zone calculation error in their automated ordering system. Something any experienced consultant would have caught if they'd bothered to understand the business before prescribing solutions. Then came the smaller accounts, the ones Tanner had classified as low priority because their contracts were under $1 million annually. Brennan Foods, who I'd helped transition from paper to digital inventory management. Clearwater Retail, whose point-of-sale system I knew better than my own laptop. Metro Healthcare Services, where I'd spent 6 months ensuring HIPAA compliance across their patient portal. Each client told the same story. Tanner had reduced them to numbers on a spreadsheet. Opportunities for automation, case studies for his AI revolution. He'd forgotten, or never knew, that enterprise clients aren't buying software. They're buying sleep. knowing their systems won't crash during Black Friday sales or patient emergencies or supply chain crunches. By week 6, Kane & Co. had 9 of Delta Corp's former enterprise accounts. That's when things got interesting. I was reviewing Clearwater Retail's system architecture when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Delta Corp's headquarters. Ms. Kane, this is Bradley Thornton from Delta Corp's legal department. I'd been expecting this call. Good afternoon, Mr. Thornton. We've noticed some concerning patterns regarding our former enterprise clients. We'd like to remind you of your non-solicitation agreement. I pulled up the document I'd signed 6 years ago, the one I'd reviewed with my own lawyer the day after I was fired. I'm familiar with my agreements, Mr. Thornton. Perhaps you could specify which clause you believe I've violated. You're systematically targeting our clients. I'm responding to inbound requests for consultation. I haven't initiated contact with a single Delta Corp client. Would you like me to forward you the email threads showing they reached out to me? Silence, then. This is clearly organized poaching. Mr. Thornton, have you considered that when multiple clients independently decide to leave, the issue might not be poaching, it might be service? He hung up. That evening, I got a text from Sarah, still hanging on at Delta Corp. Emergency all hands tomorrow. Tanner's freaking out. Just thought you should know. I didn't respond, but I did smile. The next morning, while Tanner was presumably explaining to his father's company how he'd lost 9 major accounts in 6 weeks, I was in Brennan Foods' conference room, walking their team through a supply chain optimization that would save them $200,000 annually. No AI, no automation, just careful analysis and understanding of their actual business needs. My phone buzzed during the presentation. Patricia Eastwell. Tanner just offered us a 40% discount to stay. Thought you should know we're insulted. He thinks this is about money. By the end of that day, Eastwell Logistics had joined Kane & Co.'s client roster, 10 down, 4 to go. I'd love to say I felt vindicated, that each client win erased the humiliation of being escorted from the building. But the truth was more complex. With each signature, I felt the weight of what I was building. These weren't just contracts. They were people trusting me with their livelihoods. The same trust Delta Corp had thrown away for a nepotism hire. That night, I looked at my growing client list and made myself a promise. Kane & Co. would never forget that behind every enterprise account was a person trying to solve a problem. We'd never prioritize algorithms over understanding, efficiency over empathy, or inheritance over merit. Tanner Gray had given me the greatest gift possible. He'd shown 14 clients exactly what they'd been missing. Now I just had to deliver what they'd found. The call came at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. Patricia Eastwell never called that late unless something was serious. Marissa, we have a situation. Eastwell Logistics is putting our entire technology infrastructure contract up for bid. Full RFP process. My stomach dropped. Eastwell wasn't just another client. They were the crown jewel, worth more than the next 3 contracts combined. Patricia, what happened? I thought we were solid. We are solid. But my board is nervous. Your former employer has been aggressive. They've sent 3 different executives to wine and dine board members. They're throwing around words like stability and resources. One of them actually suggested you're a risk because you're a new company. I knew this was coming. Losing 10 accounts had finally woken someone up at Delta Corp. And now they were playing hardball where it hurt most. When's the RFP due? 2 weeks. Marissa, I want you to win this, but I can't play favorites. The board wants a full competitive bid, Delta Corp, you, and probably 2 others. After we hung up, I sat in my dark home office, understanding the full weight of what was happening. This wasn't just about keeping Eastwell. If Delta Corp won this bid, they'd use it as proof that the other clients had made a mistake. Momentum would shift. Doubts would creep in. Everything I'd built could unravel with one loss. The next morning, I assembled my team. David and the 3 other former Delta Core account managers who'd joined me. We had 14 days to create a presentation that would beat a company with 50 times our resources. We can't outspend them, I said, but we can outknow them. David, you handled Eastwell's first cloud migration. Walk us through every system, every integration point, every midnight call. For 3 days, we mapped Eastwell's entire technology ecosystem. Not from documentation, from memory. Every customization we'd built, every workaround we'd developed, every future need Patricia had mentioned over coffee. Then Sarah texted, Tanner's bringing in a team from San Francisco. Big data specialists. They're promising to cut Eastwell's IT costs by 50% with automation. 50%? It was a ridiculous number. The kind of promise only someone who'd never run enterprise operations would make, but it was also the kind of number that made CFOs salivate and board members nod. I called Patricia. I need one favor, not inside information, just context. Has your board specified what winning looks like for this bid? She paused. Honestly, they're scared. 3 of our competitors went under last year after their systems failed during peak season. The board doesn't want the cheapest solution. They want to sleep at night. Sleep? There it was. We pivoted our entire presentation. Instead of competing on price or features, we focused on trust. Real stories. Like the time their primary server crashed during Black Friday. And I'd personally driven to their data center at 3 a.m. to oversee the recovery. The Christmas Eve when their tracking system glitched, and David had stayed on the phone for 16 hours straight, manually routing shipments. But Tanner wasn't sitting idle. The rumor mill, fed by former colleagues still at Delta Core, painted an ugly picture. He was spreading subtle doubts about my stability, suggesting I'd poached clients unethically, hinting that Kane & Co. was a revenge company that would fold once my anger cooled. With 5 days until the presentation, he played his nastiest card. An email appeared in my inbox, CC'd to Patricia Eastwell and her entire board. From Tanner himself. Dear Ms. Eastwell and board members, we feel it's our duty to inform you that Ms. Kane's departure from Delta Core involved performance concerns and an inability to adapt to modern business practices. While we wish her well in her new venture, we'd be remiss not to share our concerns about engaging with a consultant who required termination from her previous position. We look forward to demonstrating how Delta Core's innovative AI-first approach can transform Eastwell logistics. My hands shook as I read it. Performance concerns. Required termination? He was rewriting history, betting I wouldn't have kept documentation. He bet wrong. I'd saved everything. Every performance review, all excellent. Every bonus letter, every client commendation. Most importantly, the termination letter itself, which cited restructuring with no mention of performance. But I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I called my lawyer, then Patricia. I saw the email, she said before I could speak. For what it's worth, it made several board members angry. We've known you for 5 years. Marissa. This kind of mudslinging feels desperate. I have documentation to refute everything, but I don't want this to become about me versus him. Then don't make it about that. Make it about us. Show us who you really are. 3 days before the presentation, Delta Core made another move. They announced a partnership with a major consulting firm, bringing enterprise-level resources to all clients. The subtext was clear. Little Kane & Co. couldn't compete with their bench strength. The night before the presentation, I couldn't sleep. Everything, my reputation, my company, my team's futures, rode on 30 minutes in front of a board that had every reason to play it safe. At 3 a.m., I opened my laptop and looked at our presentation one more time. Slides full of metrics, projections, technical specifications, all solid, all professional, all wrong. I deleted everything and started over. The boardroom at Eastwell Logistics hadn't changed in 5 years. Same mahogany table, same portraits of founders, same view of the Colorado mountains. But I'd never felt the weight of those oil paintings staring down at me quite like this morning. Tanner went first. He'd brought his San Francisco team, 3 consultants in identical Navy suits who looked like they'd been pressed from the same Silicon Valley mold. His presentation was flawless. Animated transitions, real-time analytics dashboards, AI simulations showing trucks routing themselves and warehouses running on predictive algorithms. "We'll reduce your operational overhead by 52%, he declared, clicking to a slide full of green arrows pointing up. Eastwell Logistics will become the Amazon of regional shipping. One board member, Harold Chen, who'd started as a truck driver 40 years ago, raised his hand. What happens when the AI fails? Tanner's smile never wavered. Our systems have 99.9% uptime. Failure is statistically insignificant. Harold wrote something in his notebook. I knew what he was thinking because I knew Harold. He'd driven through a blizzard in '92 to deliver medical supplies. Statistics were just numbers to someone who'd lived the exceptions. They finished with a flourish, a 3D visualization of Eastwell's digital transformation journey. It was impressive. It was modern. It was everything a forward-thinking board should want. It was also completely wrong for Eastwell. My turn. I walked to the front with no laptop, no clicker, no presentation, just a single manila folder. Good morning. I'm not here to show you the future. I'm here to talk about Tuesday, December 23rd, 3 years ago. The room shifted. Patricia leaned forward. That was the night your main routing system crashed during the worst snowstorm in a decade. You had 4,000 packages in transit, including time-sensitive medical supplies. Tanner's right. The statistical probability of that failure was insignificant. But statistics didn't matter to the diabetes patient in Denver waiting for insulin. I opened the folder and pulled out a single photo, their dispatch center at 2 a.m. that night. Every desk full, every phone active. This is your team that night, and this, I pointed to a figure hunched over a laptop in the corner, is me. Not because Delta Corps sent me, because Patricia called my personal cell, and I came. Because when your business is on the line, you don't need an AI chatbot, you need someone who gives a damn. Harold was nodding now. 2 other board members exchanged glances. Mr. Gray promises you'll become the Amazon of shipping. But you're not Amazon. You're Eastwell. When Margaret Chen's flower shop needs a last-minute delivery for a funeral, she doesn't call you because of your algorithms. She calls because she knows Patricia will make it happen. When Colorado General needs emergency supplies during a crisis, they trust you because relationships, not robots, get trucks through road closures. I pulled out more papers, not slides, but printed emails. Thank you notes from clients. Photos from their company picnics where I'd been not just a vendor, but a partner. Delta Corps offers you Fortune 500 resources. They're right, I can't match that. I have 6 people and an office that's really just a converted loft. But those 6 people include David, who knows your Phoenix hub so well he can diagnose problems by the sound the conveyor belts make. They include Sarah, who helped you pass DOT audits for 3 straight years. Tanner stood up. I object to this emotional manipulation. We're here to discuss technology solutions, not tell stories. No, Patricia said quietly. We're here to decide who we trust with our business. Continue, Marissa. I looked directly at each board member. I'm not asking you to choose me over Delta Corps because they fired me. I'm asking you to choose the approach that's kept you in business for 60 years. Technology serves relationships, not the other way around. Every client Delta Corps has lost in the past 2 months learned that lesson the hard way. The boardroom was silent. Then I played my final card, the one I'd debated using all night. There's something else you should know. Tanner promised 50% cost reduction. I had coffee with the CFO of Brennan Foods last week. Delta Corps made them the same promise. The fine print? Those savings only materialized if they fired 40% of their workforce and replaced them with automation. Is that the future you want? Harold's pen stopped moving. Patricia's face was stone. I'm not here to promise miracles. I'm here to promise what I've always delivered. I will know your business, your people, and your challenges. When things break, and they will break, I'll be there. Not an avatar, not a chatbot, not a team you've never met. Me. I gathered my papers. Thank you for your time. As I walked past Tanner, he whispered, nice performance. Too bad nostalgia doesn't scale. I kept walking. Either they understood or they didn't. Either they valued what we'd built or they didn't. Either I'd just saved my company or lost everything. The longest 3 hours of my life passed before my phone rang. Patricia's number. The board voted. It wasn't close. My heart stopped. Welcome back, partner. And Marissa? Harold wants you to know that story about December 23rd. His grandson was one of the diabetes patients who got their insulin that night. I sat in my car in Eastwell's parking lot and did something I hadn't done since the day I was fired. I cried. The email arrived at 6:47 a.m., 2 weeks after Eastwell's decision. I almost deleted it. The sender was marked private, the subject line blank, but something made me open it. Ms. Kane, you've won. All 14 accounts are gone. My board has questions I can't answer. We need to talk. Richard Gray, CEO, Delta Core Solutions. Not Tanner. His father. I stared at the screen for a full minute before typing my response. One line. With respect, Mr. Gray, we have nothing to discuss. His reply came within minutes. Name your price. I didn't answer. An hour later. We'll pay 3 times market rate for you to come back. VP of Global Sales. Tanner will report to you. I didn't answer. By noon. Please, my company is bleeding. That one, I answered. Your company bled the day you let nepotism override merit. The calls started after that. Unknown numbers I didn't pick up. Then LinkedIn messages. Then, desperately. A FedEx overnight envelope containing a formal offer. 5 times my old salary. Equity, a seat on the leadership team, and a written guarantee that Tanner would be reassigned to special projects. I sent it back unopened. David found me in our new office, a real one now, nothing fancy but ours, shaking his head. Delta Core stock dropped 12% this morning, words out about losing the enterprise division. Not our problem, I said, and meant it. Because here's what Richard Gray would never understand. It was never about the money. It wasn't even about revenge, not really. It was about value, the real kind. Not the number on a paycheck or the title on a business card. 6 months later, Kane & Co. occupied the 7th floor of a building 3 blocks from Delta Core's headquarters. Not to rub it in, the lease was just good value. We had 32 employees, all hired for what they knew, not who they knew. The wall behind reception displayed our mission statement in simple letters. Relationships at scale. I was reviewing contracts when Sarah knocked. She'd joined us full-time after Delta Core's 3rd round of layoffs. You need to see this, she said, handing me her phone. A LinkedIn post from Tanner Gray. Excited to announce my new role as Digital Transformation Consultant. After successfully restructuring enterprise operations at Delta Core, I'm ready to bring my innovative approach to your company. The comments below were not kind. Several from former Delta Core clients. One from Patricia Eastwell that simply read, no. Should we do anything? Sarah asked. No. His reputation is his own problem now. That evening, I stood at my office window, my actual office, not a cubicle, not a borrowed conference room, and watched the city lights come on. Somewhere out there, Richard Gray was probably still trying to understand how his son had destroyed in 3 months what had taken me 6 years to build. He'd never get it. Neither would Tanner. They thought business was about control, about owning relationships like you own office furniture, about installing people like you install software, but relationships aren't possessions. They're choices, renewed every day, every interaction, every crisis weathered together. You can't inherit them. You can't automate them. You sure as hell can't take them for granted. My phone buzzed. Jake Morrison, texting a photo from his daughter's graduation party. The one I'd been invited to because I was family now. Not just a vendor. That's when I realized the truth. I hadn't taken anything from Delta Core. I'd simply given 14 clients the chance to choose. They chose the person who'd answered their calls, solved their problems, and treated their success like it mattered. They chose relationships over algorithms, trust over titles, history over hype, and in the end, isn't that the most devastating revenge of all? Not destroying your enemy, but simply succeeding without them. Building something better from the ashes of their arrogance. I closed my laptop and gathered my things. Tomorrow, we had 3 new client pitches. Next week, we were opening a Seattle office. Next month, I was speaking at a conference about authentic relationship building in the digital age. Delta Core would survive, probably. Companies that size usually do, but they'd never again own the enterprise relationships in our region. That bridge didn't just burn, it was atomized by a boy who thought MBA theories could replace human connection. As for me, I learned the most valuable lesson of my career. When someone shows you how little they value what you've built, believe them, then build something better. Build something they can never take away. Build it with people who understand that in business, like in life, relationships aren't just everything, they're the only thing. The parking garage was empty except for my car and one other. A familiar BMW with a Delta Core parking sticker. Richard Gray stood beside it, looking older than his LinkedIn photo. Miss Kane. I stopped but didn't approach. Mr. Gray. I wanted to apologize, not for Tanner, that's my burden, but for not seeing what we had until it was gone. Apology accepted. He nodded, started to turn, then stopped. Can I ask you something? If I'd offered you Tanner's job that day instead of letting him fire you, would you have taken it? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. You would have just found another way to show me I was expendable. This way, I learned I wasn't. He got in his car without another word. I never saw him again. But I kept the FedEx envelope he'd sent, unopened, in my desk drawer. Not as a trophy or reminder of what I'd lost, but as proof of what I'd gained. The knowledge that my value wasn't determined by anyone's signature but my own. 14 enterprise accounts. 1 firing. 0 regrets. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you. It's building something so much better that their approval becomes irrelevant. And that's priceless. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Marissa's situation? Have you ever faced something similar in your career? Let's discuss in the comments.